Hi there, my name's Luke and I've been working with the JADE plant for about 3 years now. A little bit about me, I've got an interest in art and enjoy sculpting, sketching, carving and such. I also get a kick out of improving both user experience and aesthetics. So when I started at JADE, I sort of naturally gravitated towards the GUI side of our product. I'll be going over some of the visual enhancements to JADE 2020, and I've split my content into 3 main sections: GUI enhancement, uh, improvements to the inspector, and finally IDE skins and JADE themes. So this section will go over some improvements to the general look and feel of the IDE, followed by some more specific topics, searching, painter, controls, and skin. I'll start off by stating that I don't cover all GUI or UX improvements that have gone into the 2020 release. I'll need quite a bit more time for that, but you can view the whole set in the release notes, of course. The first is a few additions to AutoComplete. AutoComplete will now prompt you with a list of block labels, if any exist, when you type after a break or continue instruction, or after an end while or end for each. And will also prompt you with the label associated with the block at that level. We now also display the signature of a constructor as you type one if it has parameters. As with method calls, depending on where the caret is located, will highlight the current parameter you're editing. AutoComplete now also passes the definition of external methods and will offer you a list of possible method options as well. This is a behavioral improvement to the AutoComplete when the use history for selection option is enabled, which is found in the user preferences dialog, the editor options sheet, I believe. So for an example of behavior in previous versions of JADE, let's say the word application is one of the items in your AutoComplete list, perhaps it's a local variable, but now you want to use a method on the app system variable. So you'd go to type app dot, and AutoComplete would insert the word application instead, which is not what you want. We now select an entry in the list when it says an exact case-sensitive match. So 2018's behavior, both application and app are in AutoComplete. This seems to be type dot will incorrectly select application instead. And in JADE 2020, because we've got a matching entry in our AutoComplete list, we'll insert that guy instead. Now it's a small quality of life improvement, I know, but I've included it in here because the previous behavior was a bit of an inadvertent. A new feature of the JADE editor is the ability to directly view usages of identifiers from method source. You can now position caret over an identifier or select the entire identifier and right click, and given whether it's a property or method, you'll select a menu of, you'll see a menu of relevant options. The menu items here perform the same actions as selecting it when right clicking a property or a method in the class cluster. Two new improvements to bubble help have been added in method source. Pressing F11 on a identifier now includes the creation timestamp and patch version. Also, when you hover over the toolbar icons, as well as displaying the icons function, will display the associated shortcut key as well, if it has one. Which leads me to the new Control Alt IDE shortcut keys that have been added. So new open, print, extract, load, monitor, and these are all displayed via the bubble help when you hover over the icons. The JADE source diff viewer has been changed to now hide the merge editor pane by default. So previously there was a pane down the bottom there, which wasn't really used. And this allows for more real estate with for the main 2 source panes. A new button has been added that's available that toggles the merge editor pane. We've improved the way in which you navigate to a particular code position by introducing a go to line feature. The dialog can be accessed from source by using Control Alt G shortcut keys and sits in the methods menu. The dialog is dual purpose and allows you to jump to either code position or line number, and the shortcut keys P and L can be used to toggle between the two. You can now import or export your custom browser layouts. The layouts are saved to the user preferences ini file, which is created as per usual from the user preferences dialog. Loading user preferences that contain a layout will override any current layout you've set. This is a small, subtle improvement that I find actually helps quite a lot. So we've improved the way in which you navigate schemas when using the navigation bar in the class browser. That's the ComboBox at the top there. That allows you to switch between different schemas. In previous versions of JADE, using the navigation bar to change schemas would always select the root object class. Now the newly selected class is one that's common to both schemas. So on the left there is 2018, and selecting a different schema will result in the object class always being selected. In 2020, when switching schemas, we'll end up selecting the next class in the hierarchy that's common to both. So you retain your position in the hierarchy. The Implementor References menu item that was once only accessible from the class browser's methods menu or the context menu in the methods listbox can now be found in various sender browser dialogs, such as the references to, implementers of, and implementor references to dialogs. So here we're viewing implementor references to a method selected from the references to dialog. On a similar note, in previous versions of JADE, while you can select a method and search for all local references, you couldn't do this with properties. Now you can, and the local references item appears in the properties context menu. This means you can select a property, right-click, and check who's using it locally. Locally, meaning all methods in the selected class and its subclasses that reference the property. You can now load user preferences from the command line. A new application has been added called Load User Profile Any File. The application has two parameters: username, which specifies the username of the profile that will be created or updated, and profile any file name, which specifies the full path and name of the any file to be loaded. The exit of the JADE client or JADE.exe is set to non-zero if the process fails. The success or failure is also written to the JOM message log. The debugger has been improved to display the value of a path. An example of path here is dog.species, dog.myowner.name, for example. So when hovering over an identifier or path, we display its name and value. Paths can also be inspected. So you can hit Control-I when hovering over a path to inspect that part of the path. And a path can now be used as a debugger watch expression as well. Suppressible message boxes. So a message box that you anticipate and receives the same button click almost each and every time can be an annoyance, especially if the message box's intent is just to display information you already know. So now selection of the JADE message boxes are now suppressible. The message boxes that can be suppressed each contain a checkbox, which you can check to indicate that you'd like to skip it the next time it would be displayed, and also to save which button you've clicked. When that message box would otherwise be displayed again, we don't show it to you and automate the same button for you. You can opt in to have a pop-up displayed when a message box would be suppressed. This pop-up window sits in the bottom left of the IDE and hides itself after a time, so no user interaction is required. So in the following video, I'll create a re-implementation of a method. This will prompt a message box asking us if we want to continue. I'll then click the checkbox so it's hidden next time, then click yes. I'll then do the same action again, re-implement another method, and now that the message box is suppressed, it won't show again. And the yes button will be automatically done. So by default, the pop-up is hidden, and you can, like I've done here, opt in. It displays the details of the message box, including title, its caption, and which button was clicked. The pop-up is completely optional and was implemented to provide a visual cue for those of us who want one. If you've not opted in, then there is no indication that message box has been automated. We've targeted the message boxes we've deemed to be the most intrusive, or those are the purely informative. We've not included potentially destructive message boxes. We've left out those pertaining to a delete or reorg operation, for example. In the user preferences dialog, a new sheet has been added so that you can adjust the suppressible message box options. Here you can toggle the suppression of individual message boxes and control which buttons will be automatically clicked. You can easily suppress them all or clear them all. And the pop-up display time text box allows you to customize how long the pop-up is displayed, and the hide pop-up checkbox is used to opt in or opt out. Okay, so next up is 5 improvements to the way in which we search in the IDE. The exposure browser now provides the ability to search for an exposure by name. A find menu item has been added to the ListBox context menu that brings up the find exposure dialog. And the list is filtered when you specify text in the find text box, which is similar to the F4 find type ListBox filtering. As you probably know, Control 6 and Control 7 can be used to search for properties and methods in the class hierarchy browser. These shortcuts are now available outside of the class hierarchy browser, including the class references browser, messages, methods, interface, and primitive type browsers, the senders browser list such as references and implementers, and the unused entities browser. The changed methods dialog has been improved to allow you to now search for methods by specifying the time, which allows for fine-tuned searching. So 2 new text boxes have been added and default to midnight and 11:59 respectively, where the to time includes any part of the specified minute. If a date field is empty, the corresponding time field is ignored. The local and global search dialogues have been improved to allow you to exclude comments and search results. A checkbox has been added that toggles the exclusion, and the default value is to include comments. You can use the Alt-U shortcut key to toggle the value of the checkbox. So single lines or block comments can be omitted. Another tweak to this dialog is that now case sensitive and full word only options are now saved between different searches, so you don't have to click each time the dialog is brought up. One of the somewhat recent improvements to the find type dialog was to allow camel case filtering of entries in its list box. This type of filtering can now be found in some of the other list boxes and combo boxes in the IDE and Painter, including the Painter load, find control dialogs, several find and define dialogs, quick navigation, and the class browser navigation bars. Next up for a few Painter enhancements. The controls menu in the JADE Painter now provides a few new menu items, 2 of which are find available caption accelerated characters. And this displays the characters in the selected control caption that are available to be used as a unique accelerator, and check for duplicate control accelerators. And this lists each duplicate accelerator and the controls that use it in the controls that use it in the full hierarchy of the selected form. Another 2 in the controls menu are push all parents and controls to top and bottom. And these allow you to bring in control and all of its parents to the top and bottom of the Z order. So in the video here, I have a checkbox within a group box within a frame, and I'm using the new menu items to bring the checkbox and its 2 parents to the top of the Z order and back to the bottom. So this just makes moving entire composite controls a lot easier. In earlier JADE releases, printer style forms were given, style form controls were given the default hard-coded font, which was Arial for JADE 7.1 and Tahoma for JADE 2016. In JADE 2020, you can now specify the default font that is to be used when adding a control field from this style form. The window method set default painter control properties is provided for you to re-implement on your custom controls, so you can specify the default font. As mentioned in an earlier slide, we now have Control-Alt shortcut keys. Now Painter's menu design form also makes the use of these new key combinations, and the shortcut key list box has been expanded to include them. This includes Control-Alt-L for character, numeral, and function keys. Control enhancements. So you can now animate forms. This is similar to the animations that are already available to controls, and this allows the display of an animated form without having to write a significant amount of logic. For an example, this is how the pop-up window for the suppressible message boxes was implemented. The window class now provides the animate window method, which supersedes the control class method of the same name. This is the superclass implementation of the control class method, which has been made unpublished, so existing uses are unaffected. All of the previous animate control constants on the control class have also been made unpublished, and new equivalents have been added to the window class instead. 2 new window-specific flags have been added. Animate window flags activate. This causes the form to be activated when shown. If it's not set, the window won't initially gain focus and retain its current set order. And animate window flags blend, which causes the form to fade in or out. On another note, if the form isn't shown, animate window will cause the load method to be executed. You can now programmatically float, dock, and pin MDI child forms in your own application logic. A floated MDI child form is not restricted by the bounds of its MDI frame and can be positioned anywhere. We now allow control over whether users can invoke an MDI menu on an MDI child form by right-clicking the caption of the form. The MDI pop-up menu consists of the following menu items: close, close all but this, close all but pinned, dock, float, and pin. And to complement that added functionality, you can now programmatically control the display of tabs for MDI child forms. There are 3 styles. MDI style MDI, which is the default. They're just the standard MDI child forms, which are the same as in early releases. MDI with tabs. This style displays a tab for each child form that can be minimized, maximized, or restored. And tabs only, where you've still got a tab for each child form, yet only the top MDI child form is visible, and it's always maximized. So these 3 styles are more or less the same as our usage of them in the IDE. Their ordering can be customized too, so you can order them by creation, which is the default setting, last used, or alphabetically. And the ordering is controlled via the application MDI window list order property. A new type of message box has been created that allows you to customize the captions of its buttons. The application message box custom method has been added that will display a message box with between 1 to 5 buttons. The flags and button captions parameters are probably the only ones that require explanation. The new flags have been added. For use with the message box and comes in 4 flavors: cancel, default, return, and icon type. The button captions parameter is just a parameterless type, and this defines the number of buttons and their captions. And here, of course, we expect strings. So as an example here, we're creating a message box where the first button is the default button. So it'll consume and enter. The second button is the cancel button, consume and escape. And it'll have a question mark icon and 4 buttons. Levels 1, 2, 3, 4. Next up, we have some skin enhancements. So in earlier releases, scroll bars were previously drawn using the scroll bar skins attached to the applied application skin. By default, scroll bars are drawn using the JADE Skin H scroll and JADE Skin V scroll skins assigned to the application. Currently, the only scroll bar skin that can be applied to a table is the default scroll bar skin for the current application skin. And the only way to get around this was to create a new JADE application skin with the desired different scroll bars. In JADE 2020, you can now specify a different horizontal and different vertical scroll bar skin. And you can do this with the My Horizontal and My Vertical scroll bar skin properties, which are on JADE Skin window class. The 2 properties only apply to controls that can display scroll bars, otherwise they're ignored. A new scroll bar skins group box has been added to the JADE Skin maintenance dialog, and this allows you to select the specific scroll bar skins for compatible controls. If no scroll bar skin is selected for a control, then a forms scroll bar will be used. If the form doesn't specify scroll bars, then the application skin scroll bars will be used instead. You can now clone skins from the JADE Skin maintenance dialog. The applications, controls, forms, menus, simple buttons, and Windows State images sheets now all have a clone button with which you can create a new skin item as a copy. So if we were to clone a button, click the clone button down the bottom left, and the control skin's name will turn red to indicate that a new name is required. So I'll enter a new name, then click the update to create a new clone. And I actually found this really useful when tweaking the JADE 2020 skins. The JADE Skin table class has 2 new properties, fixed columns 4 color and fixed rows 4 color, and these surprisingly allowed you to set the 4 color of the fixed columns and rows. On another note, the fixed row color has precedence property of the JADE Skin table class has changed. It now specifies whether cells that are in both the fixed row and a fixed column are drawn using the value of the fixed row's back color and the fixed row's 4 color properties. Previously, we were only using the value of the fixed row's back color property. The JADE Skin maintenance dialog controls sheet has been updated to include the new properties. Some improvements to the overflow buttons on the folder control. So if a folder is set up to display tabs in a single line and not all of them can fit in the available space, JADE used to add 2 arrow buttons. They were both on the right-hand side of the line to allow you to scroll the tabs. The display of the buttons have changed in JADE 2020. Now the right arrow remains where it was, but the left is now on the left. Both buttons are drawn with the back color of the folder, and each button is the height of the tab line. The buttons you see there are skinned. The buttons can now be skinned, and the JADE Skin folder class has a few new properties. They're pretty self-explanatory. The left and right buttons are of the type JADE Skin simple button, and the back color is by default set to the system color. So we'll use the background color of the parent. And again, the JADE Skin maintenance dialog has been updated to allow you to set this button skin there. Okay, now we'll look at some changes to the inspector. So one of the first things you'll probably notice is that there's in JADE 2020 is that there's a new control on the IDE main toolbar, which is this guy. And the gist of it is you can enter an OID and hit enter or click inspect and it'll open the inspector for you. So the main point of this feature is you no longer have to write any code to inspect something. While we're up here in the toolbar, I'll just sidetrack a little and state that there's now a context menu, and it'll let you show or hide both the clipboard and the new inspect toolbar. So it's an opt-out feature, and if you want a clean toolbar, if you'd rather, you can. And we save these values on your profile, so it's stored over multiple sessions. Now, the grey text in the combo box there specifies the current working schema, and I'll come back to why that's there in just a few slides. Clicking the green arrow or dragging it from the parent toolbar will float it. Now, in this mode, we also display a list box, which is used for search results. Also, Control Alt and I will set the focus in the search bar there, whether it's floating or docked. So you can now enter an OID or class number or class name here. And either double clicking on a selected entry in the list box or hitting inspect will open the inspector for that object. Back to why that grey text on the docked toolbar was there. So the current working schema is displayed as either hint text when the inspect toolbar is docked or as part of the form's caption when it's loaded. So when searching by class name, they're obviously not unique, and it's just there to let you know which schema you're currently searching from. So for example, if schema S1 defines a class C1 and in a different hierarchy, schema S2 also defines a C1 class, when you search for a C1 by name, the text is just there to show you at a glance which schema you're searching from. When searching by class number or OID, it doesn't matter which schema you have selected. We do also allow you to qualify a class name with a schema name, so you can target instances from a specific schema if you prefer. The results in both the floating list box here and in the inspector itself are paginated, and navigation arrows exist to jump to the start and next previous pages if there are more than 1,000 entries. Here there's 10 million. Currently there are 1,000 items per page, but I'd like to make that customizable at some point. And this behavior and the toolbar itself carries over into the inspector as well. The toolbar can be toggled on and off, and the inspector itself has been given a new sheet to display search results, and search items will appear in that usual history list box. Lastly, an object's volatility and creation time have been added to the object properties in the list box. Okay, come to the last topic, which is skins and introducing JADE themes. So we've added 10 new dark skins in JADE 2020, and they sort of come in two varieties and differ in the caption area. There are 5 there with a simple gradient along the caption area, and 5 skins there with a design in the top left corner. Unlike the 2016 and 2018 skins, which shared the same green control skins, each of these skins contain skin-specific controls. So various buttons and scroll bars, for instance, will have the same main theme color. And here's just to give you an idea of what the IDE looks like with a dark skin applied. And we've also created light versions of each of the new dark skins, apart from Vacuum Tube, which is meant to be a pure sort of dark theme. We've also kept the old skins in and actually upgraded them so they contain skin-specific control colors. For previously, all the controls were the same green and we used brave skin. The dark skins of each of the old skins have been added too. So there's plenty to choose from, and we've gone from 5 skins in 2018 to 29 skins. So JADE 2016, JADE 2016 introduced new system and access icons, and although the resolution of the icons was drastically increased from the 16 by 16 pixels that they were before, we then chose to go for a clean monotone look. So when we were looking for an icon, we had to scan based on its shape rather than color, which is faster. So you may have already noticed in some of the previous slides, but we've brought the color back into the icons. And this is for both toolbar icons up the top there, which are found in the IDE, Debugger, and Painter and such, and the access icons found in the various browsers. And the dark themed icons are subtly different so as to retain contrast with the background. JADE themes. So I should note that the cohesive dark IDE look in our IDE isn't just created solely with skins. There are 2 parts of the IDE visuals here. There's the skin itself, and then there's the relationship editor and window colors. And these 3 color sets are accessible and customizable from the user preferences dialog. And a JADE theme consists just of a color palette that represents these 3 color sets. 2 default JADE themes have been created for you, and when we change the skin to a dark skin, we will also switch to a dark JADE theme, and vice versa when we switch to a light skin. The light mode and dark mode option buttons is the main mechanism for switching between the 2 color modes. We also record the previously selected skin and JADE theme, so all you have to do is toggle the color mode to switch between the 2 favorites, for instance. So JADE themes were basically introduced to facilitate the switching between the dark and light skins and bring together the different color options. You can create, edit, reset, and delete the JADE themes, and they can be imported and exported independently from the standard user preferences any file. Here's the JADE theme definition dialog, where you can specify its name, which theme it's based on, whether it's a light or dark theme. And they can be imported or exported independently from the standard user preferences any file. So previously, if you wanted to move your customized colors from one system to another, they'd have to be imported along with everything else defined in the user preferences any file. The existing user preferences any files are unaffected. They still contain color information and remain backwards compatible. When you import a user preferences file, the current color sets are overwritten, but this doesn't overwrite your theme until you hit OK in the user preferences dialog. So gives you a chance to tweak things. Importing and exporting a JADE theme was just a low-cost addition and done simply as a way to import colors without overriding your preferences. Okay, so we've covered new skins, the introduction of JADE themes, introducing the new inspector toolbar, and with without having to write any code, and many updated forms and controls in multiple areas of the IDE. And that wraps up my section. Thanks for your time.